Hello everybody. This is the first class for our Writing 431 and Writing 531 practical application of XML and DITA. So I will be recording every class and making it available for asynchronous viewing. This is a hybrid class, so the plan had been that we would have every other class on campus in person and then offsetting classes online, which I have typically done as video recordings that I put on YouTube. So for this class, I will have the classes that were originally scheduled to be on campus to be Zoom classes, and those will be mandatory, but if you have extenuating circumstances, then I will be happy to work with you. The ones that were going to be online will be my usual fashion, where I just tape the asynchronous, record the asynchronous video, put them on YouTube, and make those available to you. So this is the first class, introduction class. I'm going to share the slides as PDF files here for those who don't have Windows, Microsoft Office, and I will also make them available as PowerPoint slides, your choice. So if technical writing is a continuum with writing on one end and technical on the other end, this class is heavily weighted toward the technical end of the continuum. I do this because I think in the professional industry, proficiency in writing is just expected. The degree to which you are able to be technically proficient distinguishes you. This class will mimic a professional setting. Completing this class will put you at the front of the line in the job market with respect to DITA, according to me. And why is according to me important? Well, I have some experience in this. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm currently the User Experience Manager at ADEC. We are a manufacturing company of best-in-class dental equipment. As the manager of the user experience team, I have three teams. One team is the technical communication team, or the technical writing team. The other team is the web team, and then the third team is the configuration team. Before that, for 19 years, I was the senior manager of the web technology and operations team at Tektronix. That was during my tenure there. I also managed the technical writing team. We had a mature DITA operation there at Tektronix, so the degree to which the technical writers could distinguish themselves with technical proficiency was very beneficial. By the way, as I do these slides, unless I make an egregious mistake, I'm just going to plow on, so I may fumble a little bit, but please do ask me questions if you have any questions. Best to reach me via email. I'm the chair of the Xsl Technical Committee. I'm a member of the OASIS DITA Technical Committee, the curator and provider of the DITA Xsl round trip tool, and I've done several DITA XML conferences. So if we were in person, then what we'll do in the Zoom class is that I will ask you to introduce yourself, including your familiarity with HTML, XML, and code, and tell us something interesting about yourself. This is often how we begin kickoff meetings in the professional world. So I'll start out. Something interesting about me. I've done an album with the English recording artist Odette Barris. I did the music and she did the vocals. She's a wonderful, wonderful vocalist. She's also very skilled at piano. And I've done a solo album, each of which are available in iTunes or Amazon or whatever your favorite places to get those. So now let's break away and let's do a syllabus review. So this is the practical application of XML and DITA class, Writing 431, 531. It was meant to be a hybrid class, but now all classes are going to be online for the spring session, and that's fine. We're all getting through this together. We're all learning. We'll all make mistakes, and we'll all learn from our mistakes. people who have had my classes before know how the hybrid classes work, so we're a little bit ahead of the curve. My office hours are Tuesdays or Fridays starting at 4:30. Please let me know if you want to schedule office hours. As I said, this is a technical course, but it's a course that you can definitely get through. I will do everything I can to make sure that even though you're stepping out of your comfort zone, that you will succeed. There are no prerequisites for this class. The objectives are to develop and strengthen your technical prowess, to showcase your technical prowess, and to step outside your comfort zone. I will definitely help you with those. Upon successfully completing this class, for the undergraduate 431 students, you'll have an understanding of XML syntax and be able to demonstrate the ability to construct, process, and troubleshoot XML. You'll be familiar with XML sister standards like DITA, DocBook, HTML, and SVG. You'll understand how and be able to articulate the principles, benefits, and processes of topic-based authoring and publishing. You'll be familiar with and equipped to cope with the pitfalls and challenges of deploying DITA and XML workflows like translation, reuse, and content management systems. And you'll have a high-level proficiency in DITA, high-level and entry-level proficiency in DITA, excuse me. For the graduate students, 531, all of the 431, little typo there, 431 outcomes. In addition, an additional outcome that reflects the extra work that grad students are doing on the assignment to include all images for the midterm DITA project. An additional outcome that reflects the extra work graduate students are doing on the assignment to add an advanced section to the final project. We will have quizzes that will, of the 100 points that you'll be able to get in this class, quizzes will count for 10 points. There will be 2 of them. The midterm exam will be 20 points. The midterm projects will be 20 points. A final exam for 30 points, and that will be 20 points for the exam and 10 points for what I call the X1 project. And then there's the final project that will be worth 20 points. The software we'll be using is EasyDITA. We'll be using Saxon for our XSLT processor. We'll be using the DITA Open Toolkit 3.4. We'll be using the DITA XLIF Round Trip plugin. I would encourage you to get a professional grade text editor, and here are a couple that I've recommended. You'll need Firefox to use our content management system. The text is Introduction to DITA, XML Pocket Reference, and a practical guide to XLIF 2.0. I apologize that the bookstore didn't, for some reason, list the materials for 531, but they are essentially the same as 431. So these are the texts that you will be required to have. I don't know why they have this out of stock annotation on the 2 of the 3 books. So I am working with them to sort that out. I require you to attend all of the synchronous sessions. However, flexibility will be provided for students who are suffering hardships related to the COVID-19 pandemic. There's some information about the COVID-19 pandemic here. I totally acknowledge that we're in uncharted territory, and we're just going to have to do the best that we can do. So the sessions will be synchronous. The ones that are identified as class mean synchronous. In other words, I will give you the Zoom invitation to attend that class, and then the sessions that are annotated as online are the ones that will be asynchronous, that you can view and do the coursework at your own schedule, as long as you complete it prior to the next week's session. So for example, this April 7th online class, if you watch the video and perform the requirements before the April 14th class, then you will have satisfied that requirement. Okay, we will have the D1 project, which will be in EasyData, to create a new data sheet that mimics this one that I have in this URL. I will give you full instructions on how to do that. We will have you install and configure the Data Open Toolkit, compile an HTML project and a PDF project. Graduate students will have a few more requirements. And then X1 will be to install the Xlif Data Roundtrip plugin. I'll make that available to you, and to complete these steps here to translate a project. And then D3 will be to create a tutorial user manual or online help system on how to use EasyData. Graduate students will be required to include a section on advanced topics. Okay, so that's the syllabus review. Let's continue now. To get you familiar with how these slides work, the requirements for the current session will be in the top row, and then the next look ahead to what will be required next week is in the grayed out second row. So for example, next week I'll be asking you to read some chapters out of XML Pocket Reference. Let's talk about XML. Basically, in this introductory class, I'm going to give you a brief overview of all the things that we're going to be looking at throughout the course of the year. XML will figure very prominently. XML is extensible markup language. It's text-based markup format. It's the method for creating, editing, storing, and processing electronic data and documents. XML is ubiquitous. XML is the standard in which data is modeled. If this were an in-person class, you'd see me flailing around, pointing to my watch and pointing to my phone and talking about your car and mentioning that XML is ubiquitous. It's in virtually everything. This is rendered XML in the form of a Portland State University homepage. But if we were to, this is the code view, and if we were to right-click on that page and do page source view page source, we would know that this is XML because we would see a doc type declaration. So for example, if I go to and I right click and I say view page source, I see that this is actually XML, and indeed I do have this doc type declaration at the top. So that's how we know that our PSU website is in XML, and then the underlying XML shows us that this text here that's nicely rendered by the browser is actually XML elements. Even this Microsoft Word file is an XML file. So if you looked at this is from previous classes, but if you looked at our Word file for our syllabus, and if you were to add .zip to the file name and extract the zip file, you would find in that file one called document.xml, and you would see that that's XML as well. So XML is indeed ubiquitous. XML has a family of open standards. There is Xsl. Xsl is a family of recommendations for defining XML file transformations and presentation, consisting of XSLT, XPath, and XSLFO. Style sheet gives an unfortunate limiting connotation because actually you do transformations. You can take any form of XML and transform it into any other kind of XML, or even into any ASCII text file that you can think of. Xsl is the standard with which data is published. The Xsl workflow for XML transformation goes something like this. You begin with an XML source file and a desired target XML or text format. You write an XSLT that will transform the source into the target format. You apply XSL processing, sometimes with an automated tool via the XML tool, or sometimes you run it from the command line, and then you observe the resulting file. So here's an example of XSLT that's embedded. This is a tool called Oxygen, and if you click the transform or apply transformation button, it will apply the XSL for you. So that's an example of a tool that does the XSL processing. The result would be that you would have a PDF rendered from the automated data map transformation. So an example of a simple command line transformation, we would have a working directory. There would need to be an XSL processor in that directory or a pointer to that processor. We would have a source XML file, and then we would have a script XSLT file. And then at that command line, so here's the source might look something like this. This is an XML file, in this case of the syllabus. This is an XSLT script that says when you encounter certain elements, do certain things to them and make them have a certain output. You would invoke the command line. With Windows, you would go to the accessories command line prompt. With Mac, you would go into the terminal app in the utilities folder. Or in Windows 10, you would go to the Windows system and select command prompt that way. You would type the syntax. In this case, it would be java -jar saxon9.jar -output syllabus.html, because we're going to create an HTML file from our XML file. The input file would be syllabus XML, and then the XSL transformation would be XML to HTML.xsl. And the resulting file would be an HTML file with HTML elements rather than the elements that the source file had. And the resulting file, when viewed in a browser, would be bold looks like bold, paragraphs look like paragraphs, tables look like tables, bullets look like bullets, etc. Okay, so let's see how that would work. I'll do a quick demo here. By the way, if you want to follow along, I would recommend that you create a folder on your desktop called DITA 2020. And in your DITA 2020, create a folder called Downloads. And from D to L, sorry, another typo there, Content, Resources, download the XML folder, or the XML file and the DITA Open Toolkit file into your DITA 2020 Downloads folder. So I'm going to do that. So I have a rather blank desktop here. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that DITA-2020. And within there, I'm going to create a downloads file, new file folder called downloads. And in that file, I'm going to go to D2L, and let's do it here. And I'm going to go into resource files. I'm going to go into, I'll go into D2L, and I'll click into my to the D2L for this class. I will click into Content, and I will go into Resources, Resource Files, and I'm going to download XML. And I'm going to download the DITA Open Toolkit 3.4.1, download, into those folders that I mentioned before. So in order to save a little time and not make you wait through the downloads, I've previously downloaded these, and I'm just going to move them into the downloads folder. But these downloads take a little bit of time. That's why I'm just going to kind of skip that step and do it here. So once you have these downloaded, they'll come to you as zip files. So what you do is you right-click on the zip file and you say Extract All, and that will put the file where you want it. On the Mac, you would just double-click and it'll extract right in place, which is really what you want. Okay, so that's how you unzip the files. So I have downloaded and extracted my XML file and my DITA Open Toolkit file. I will go into Windows, and I will go into Windows System, and I will call up my command prompt. One of the things that I've done is I've dragged out of that Windows System folder, I've grabbed the command prompt and I've dragged it into my ribbon. Since I already have one there, I don't need to do that. I would recommend that you do the same. So once I get there, first of all, I'm going to observe in my XML folder that I have a folder called Xsl, and I'm going to observe that I have one called class, and I have one class called Xsl, and I have one called class.xml. I'm going to remove this class.html. So what I want to do here, and I'm also going to observe that I have my Saxon 9. So if I look in Notepad++, and I look at my class.xml file, I see that I have a very simple XML file that has a root element, an intro element, some embedded elements, and another embedded element. These would be called inline elements, and then my closing tag for PSU class. And then I'm also going to observe that I have this XSL. So in the XSL, I see that when I encounter PSU class, I'm going to turn it into HTML. When I encounter intro, I'm going to turn it into paragraphs. When I enter conclusion, we'll turn into paragraphs, and emphasis will turn into bold. This is a very simple XSL script. So I'm going to change directories to my desktop. I'm going to try not to make any typos. I'm going to do a dir, and I see that I have DITA 2020. I'm going to change directories to DITA-2020 directory. For Mac, I would do ls instead of directory. Okay, so now I see in DITA, I have downloads, so I'm going to change directories to downloads. dir, change directory to XML, and change directory to XSL. And I see that I have my class.xml and my class.xsl, but I don't yet have class.htm. So I'm going to say Java space minus jar space minus O for output space class.html. That's going to be my output file. My input file is going to be class.xml, and my XSL script is going to be class.xsl. If I haven't done any typos, I should get a nice smooth operation here. I press enter, and it says unable to find jar file. Aha, so there was, I made a mistake. I forgot to tell which jar file. So let's correct that. Java minus jar Saxon 9.jar, and now everything's going to be the same. Minus O for output, class.html. The input is class.xml, and the XSLT script is going to be class.xsl. That should be better. Oh, once again, I forgot to put the 9 in there. So now I'm going to carefully arrow over. See, this is what happens when you are on the command line. It's very unforgiving. So I'm going to section 9. Okay, so that should work. Enter, and sure enough, now if I do a dir, I see that I do have an HTML file. If I were to look at that HTML file, the newly created HTML file, in the Notepad++, I see that I now have HTML elements, and if I look at that in the browser, I see that it indeed made bold, and it made paragraphs look like paragraphs. So that's how XML works and how XSL works. So let's continue. What about DITA? So DITA is pretty important. DITA is Darwin Information Typing Architecture. It is owned by the OASIS So its URL is here for the technical committee. It's an XML vocabulary for topic-based authoring and archiving and publishing. The number of DITA topics and maps per output and their nesting and hierarchy usually cause complexity, making a content management system necessary. A DITA operation requires many roles: information architect, writer, editor, system administrator, publishing specialist, translation coordinator, etc., all of which will be covered in this class. So this is an example of DITA. This is rendered DITA. It's a data sheet out on a website. It's rendered as HTML. This is the code view. So this is a content management system that manages all the major complexity. This particular data sheet has about 200 topics and maps. So the topics are here, and you can see a little, what you see is what you get, kind of a graphical view. And the idea is that you tie all of these all of these topics together in a map, and the map sort of looks like, it just tells you what topic do I want and where do I want it. Topics can be nested, and there's a lot we can do. This is the DITA code view of a topic. So for example, we said that we wanted this key performance specifications in the map here, and we pulled this, the map will pull this into that particular output. The CMS automates the creation either of an HTML output or a PDF output. So that's kind of how that works. At the heart of almost every content management system is this thing called the DITA Open Toolkit. The DITA Open Toolkit transforms DITA XML source content into deliverable formats like PDF, HTML, and help systems. Nearly every DITA tool has a version of the DITA Open Toolkit integrated within its framework. DITA Open Toolkit is open source, and you can get it here at ditaot.org. The standalone DITA Open Toolkit is run at a command line. If you work in a DITA operation, you or somebody on your team will need to get involved in the DITA Open Toolkit at some point. It might as well be you. And here's a little editorial comment by me. Your pay and the degree to which you are perceived as vital to the operation will go up. So, not many people use the DITA Open Toolkit raw natively, but in this class we're going to look at it. It's, I think, you know, if you're going to learn to drive a car, for example, I always say learn to drive a stick shift, even though chances are you'll be mostly driving an automatic. In this class we'll be using DITA 3.4.1. Beginning with version 2, some fundamental changes were made in the architecture. My opinion is that 3.x is better than 3.2, but the evolution is not fully baked yet, and in this class I'll walk you through the wobbly parts. To get it, you would download and extract the DITA Open Toolkit. I went ahead and put it on D2L, so you can just get it from D2L, but if you were not taking this class and you always wanted to get the latest version, you could go to dita.org and find the latest version. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your Java is correct. So at home you'll do this, at the command line you'll do this Java -version, and you should see something that tells you what version of Java you have. If you get an error message, you'll need to go get the Java JDK and install it. You can do so at the Oracle website here. Hopefully most of your computers will come with Java. So then we can compile a sample output. We'll go to the DITA Open Toolkit, and we'll notice that there is a samples directory and a DITA map, and then if we were doing Mac, we would enter this command line. If we're on Windows, we would do almost the identical command line, except we have backslashes instead of slashes. And then this would give us the HTML, and this would give us the PDF. And then we would observe the output. In this case, we would have HTML, and we would have DITA output. So I'm going to do a quick little demonstration. I'm going to kind of cheat and have my command line ready for me. Because I'm doing HTML, I get funny things with my spacing. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to paste it into my command line. And I'm going to fix those spaces. So it gave me tabs instead of spaces, so I'm just going to turn those tabs into spaces here. Just bear with me for 1 second. The command line doesn't like tabs. It wants spaces to be spaces. So I'm just selecting the tab and I'm pressing my space bar. If you copy from the PDF file or from the PowerPoint file, you should not have the same errors. One thing that I have seen happen is that it turns these dashes into M dashes or N dashes, and that causes some trouble. So I'm just going to kind of clean these up here. Again, I'm going to turn my tabs into spaces. Or you could just type it at the command line, and as long as you make sure that you don't do any typos, you should be just fine. So the syntax here is that we're going to use the DITA command, and then we're going to say our input is here in the DITA Open Toolkit. Our output we want is PDF. The format is PDF. And we want to put it in this folder called test folder and test folder 2. So if we look at the DITA Open Toolkit, here in our DITA downloads, we have our DITA Open Toolkit, and we do indeed see that we have a resources or doc source, and we have samples. Within that sample, I have this sequence. There are 3 DITA maps. I chose sequence, and it will refer to XSLs that are in here and to topics and maps that are in here in these directories. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to my root directory, and I'm going to first of all create the HTML file. So I'm going to copy this, Control C, and then I'm going to navigate. So I was in XSL, so I can do cd space ... That'll take me up 1 directory higher. Do that again, cd ... That'll take me a directory higher. I'm going to do my dir. If I were in the Mac, I would do ls. So I see that I have a DITA directory there, so I'm going to say change directory space DITA -OT -3.4.1, enter. And now I'm going to do that command line, so I'm just going to do a Control V because I already copied it. And if there are no typos there, I should be able to just say enter. Sometimes you get some benign error messages here, but if it's really clean like this one appears to be, it's just going to take its time and process. And so if I look at what's going on here, it's looking to that source directory, it's reading that source file, the map, and then it made this folder called test folder. If I go in here, I see that I have my index, and I have concepts and so forth that have been turned from the DITA map into these HTML files. So if I click on the index file, I'll see that I indeed have all of these topics, and here's my very favorite one, washing the car, because it has this really awesome image. So that's how the DITA Open Toolkit works. And if I wanted to create a PDF file, I would do the same thing. I would go to the, I would use this command line to make the PDF file. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to the command line. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to hit enter. And what this does is it uses XSLFO rather than XSLT. It has an XSLFO for formatting objects processor in there, and it turns the, it reads the DITA map file. It finds all of the topics and images that are required for that folder, and it turns it into a PDF file. This one takes a little bit longer. So what we're waiting for is this command prompt to come back, and that will tell us that we have all clear and that our processing was successful. So the command line came back. So let's go into that folder, and we'll go back up to our DITA Open Toolkit. And we told it, in this case, we want it to be test folder 2. So we'll look in there, and sure enough, we have a PDF file. And our PDF file has all of those topics, including the one with the excellent graphic that I really, really, really like. And it has hot links and so forth. Pretty good stuff for free. So that's how the DITA Open Toolkit works. We'll have more robust examples when we do that topic in our DITA Open Toolkit class. Okay, so let's go back to our slides. So we did all of those steps, and we did observe our outputs. We completed the demo. So as I said before, most of the time when you work with DITA, you will need a content management system, a component content management system. A content management system means different things to different people. To my web team, it means a web content management system. To people who support the bills of material and these kinds of things for the corporation, they would be thinking about the ECM, the Enterprise Content Management System. But for people who are in a DITA class or working on DITA, what we think of it when we say CMS is a component content management system. So why do we need a CMS? A DITA operation is complex with many moving parts, reuse and single sourcing, shared topics, maps, and images between outputs. There are multiple versions of topics, maps, and images, multiple language translations of topics and maps and images, and there are an overwhelming number of files. So there can be many maps and images that are shared between documents. For example, we have a data sheet that uses some of the same topics that our manual uses, our user manual. So let's look at an example. So if we looked at this printed data sheet, let's call this our 26-page data sheet typical. It's made up of 205 topics. So that's a lot of topics, and then we've cut up each of the topics to represent what a topic would be. So if we calculated the density, so for a 25-page PDF file that was rendered from DITA, that would be made up of 205 topics, 23 maps, and 24 images. There are 253 files to make up a 26-page document, and that's about 10 files per page. So if we calculated, let's say we had 100 products in our website, each of which had that ratio, so that would be an average of 25 pages. The average manual is 150 pages. The average density is 10 files per page. 100 products, each of which having one data sheet and one manual. The average number of languages would be 6. That's 1,050,000 files per website just to have one manual and one data sheet in all of the languages that we support. So how would you like to manage that on a file system? That would be almost impossible, right? So we have content management systems. A content management system is an application that enables creating, editing, versioning, translating, and publishing content and output, usually through an intuitive graphical user interface, or a GUI. The CMS manages workflow in a collaborative environment. A component content management system is a content management system focusing content primarily at the granular level and secondarily at the document level. Each component represents a topic, map, or image. The component content management system manages versions of topics, maps, and images, and it manages relationships between topics, maps, images, languages, and publications. The component content management system that we will be using is called EasyDITA. I will give you credentials. Once you receive your credentials from me, you'll go here. At the moment, I'm working with the EasyDITA people. This URL is not working correctly, but I expect that it will by the time we need it. And then your project that you will do will be to create a data sheet similar to the one here. Well, let's do it this way. I might have trouble with this PDF file, but there's a link there, and then we'll kind of create our own data sheet similar to that. So that's the introduction for our first class in our 431 and 531 class here, writing 431, writing 531. This is the archive version of these slides. As I said before, we'll have a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. So I'll expect you to attend every other week on Zoom. If you go to D2L, you'll notice in the people Zoom meetings that we have all of these meetings scheduled. So Today's is March 31st, the first class. 2 weeks later is April 14th. 2 weeks after that is April 28th, and so on and so forth. So please do attend those, and I will be sure to be there on time myself, and we'll get through it. If there's any technical difficulties, that's okay. The slides will always be available on YouTube. I'll make the URL known, and I will be available to answer any questions. Hit me up on email, schedule office session with me, and we'll definitely get through it. You know, we're in this together, we're learning, and we'll do just fine. So with that, thank you, everybody. Look forward to our in-class sessions, which will start very soon. Thank you.